Welcome back again to our Meet the Speaker series for the 4th Annual CAV Forum being held this year in Geneva, as usual, 21st through the 23rd of October. And today it's my great pleasure to introduce Daniel Harney, who is the Road Safety Program Manager at TGS Fleet Services, being Toyota Gibraltar. So, Daniel, welcome. Nice to see you again.
Nice to see you too, Rob. Thanks.
Excellent. All right. So, as part of this series, what we aim to do is just introduce the speakers to the market and to industry as a precursor to the CAV Forum in October. So, why don't we kick it off and tell us a little bit about yourself and the work that you do there down at TGS?
Pleased to do so. Again, thanks for having me on. Really appreciate it. So as you say, I'm the Road Safety Program Manager for Toyota Gibraltar. I work remotely from Canada when I'm not in the field. Previously to joining TGS in 2022, I spent about 8 years with the United Nations, mainly as a security manager, but then subsequently as road safety specialist at the UN Staff College in Turin. And previous to that, another 8 years with NGOs, again, primarily security, the country, region, and headquarters. And I got my start in the Canadian military in the Armored Corps, where I spent 10 years as an officer in both tanks and reconnaissance vehicles. So what I do now, I'm leading the road safety pillar for TGS Fleet Services, which mainly focuses on training program, focused on professional drivers and training trainers to be able to deliver training for professional drivers. And as the name suggests, the major focus is on road safety and reducing crashes, making sure there's a good, efficient driving, and providing comfort for passengers as well.
Indeed. And look, it's a critical area. We're really pleased that you'll be joining us this year at CAV Forum, in that we know statistically that there are more people who are God forbid, injured and killed due to road incidents, road collisions and traffic incidents, rather than from a blast or ballistic attack. And so it's obviously a focal area for organisations to enable them to enhance the safety of the users of the vehicles. And so we're very pleased to have you there. So maybe you can just give us a brief rundown of and summary of the type of issues that you're going to be covering at this year's CAV Forum.
So we're going to in terms of my presentation, I'm going to largely follow the ADDIE method that you use for designing and delivering a training program. So analyze, design, develop, implement, and evaluate. Mm-hmm. Because that takes us through the whole experience of what we've found for the last 10 years. So in the analysis side of it, I'm going to talk about how we came up with and determined what actually needed to be in a training program for professional drivers, and we're focused on the humanitarian sector. So primarily UN, but also NGO. And that included reviewing, a lot of crash data and drawing out, the key things. So I'm going to bring out some interesting tidbits on that side. In terms of the design, then we'll take a look at how we kind of figured out what would work. And you've got to take into account you're delivering in a lot of different contexts all over the world. You've got language issues, you've got cultural issues, you've got left and right side driving, you've got different threat environments and so on. So we'll talk about that. In terms of the actual development of it, we're going to take some lessons learned from the LV side of it, which we'd already, been putting into place, and talk a little bit about how we then merge those two in a way that was effective. Implementation gets quite interesting because that's where the old adage, no plan survives first contact. Right? So then you start to get out in the field and start to deliver, and you're encountering now the reality of not only the field conditions, but what the drivers actually know, right? What their organizations expect, the quality of the vehicles, and that's an interesting thing always with CAVs because there's so many different designs. Even if you're just saying it's a 200 or a 300 series Toyota, you've got all kinds of different designs, irrespective of the platform, from the different manufacturers, and all the different protection levels and everything else, and all that. So that's quite interesting in terms of when you get into that. So I'll be drawing some more for lessons learned from the field side of it. And I do want to draw it a bit on the evaluation side because I think that's something that too frequently is not really done well. And I understand why. I mean, it's hard sometimes to go beyond feedback. Did people like a course? But does it actually have an impact? And how do you determine that? And so on. And so I'll use that as a kind of a way to structure the presentation and draw out our last 10, 11 years of experience doing it.
Excellent. Look, again, it's a critical area for organizations. And that lesson learned, that feedback, and that's a bit of a theme happening within the CAV Forum. And too often we find with our clients, we'll go out into the field, we'll talk with the drivers, we'll talk about the driver training. And they go, yes, of course, our organisation provider. When did they do this? Oh, about 4 years ago. Has there been any follow-up? Well, not really. There's budget cuts and there's timing and scheduling, and mission has to plan the travels, and they're never free to do so. And there's this loop of it can be delayed. And that's a critical part of organisations learning how to train, which is very much what you're trying to cover.
Yeah.
And implementing it, and then following it up, that evaluation, that follow through to ensure that the habits you're trying to teach are then maintained, not just through the duration of the course, but in 6 months, 18 months, 3 years, etc. along the way. So
I think that's a great one. You mentioned habits because we're talking about behavior, human behavior, which is not easy to to condition and to maintain. And I think that a lot of this organizations just don't understand or don't take into account, right? It's they think we put a policy in place and we write something and that therefore becomes reality. And driving being a self-directed task is really, I mean, that's where you see it all comes down to behavior. It doesn't matter about knowledge and skills so much as the behavior and are you is the organization encouraging it? Do they value it? Because driving safely and effectively and professionally and all those sorts of things takes effort. And if an effort isn't valued, then why put that effort into it, right?
And I think there's the added challenge. Most people have their own private motor car, and they travel generally sort of the same route through to work or to their parents or to the shops. And once they're on that auto loop and they're on this almost a mindless activity because they're doing it so often, the brain just does it automatically. And then they'll step into the CAV vehicle and they'll go on a similar route. It may well be with head of mission, and they're still in that neutral zone. So that's one aspect to conquer, to enforce a focus level. And the second part too being is taking into account, as you say, it's a self-directed activity. It depends on the driver and his circumstance. And if male or female driver then has an argument with their partner, their spouse, their child, or is worried about something, or is thinking about the latest football results, and they bring that into the vehicle as they're taking off, now you have a very challenging variable that is something that you need to take into account as best you can. So, all right, look, Daniel, it's I could spend hours discussing with you.
I know, same here.
Indeed, and it's again, thank you for joining us in October. It's a tremendously important topic, and we look forward to you sharing your experience, as you say, over the last 10 plus years in this game. And I'm sure that the people who will be attending will take a lot of benefit and take home knowledge and tips of the trade, if you like, so they can take that back to their organisations and their locales. Excellent. So,
my pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you in October.
All right, Rob. Thanks.
Cheerio. Thanks indeed.